I'm a 17-year-old girl and I dance quite a lot. Most of my classes are within walking distance. This particular story takes place in December while preparing for a winter show, so even at 7 p.m. it was pretty dark. I was late for my curfew, so instead of walking an extra 5 minutes on the well-lit main road, decided to cut through the cemetery. So I'm walking through the cemetery, feeling creeped out as it is, clutching my pointed shoes like a weapon, when I see someone leaning over a grave and crying. Common sense tells me that it's probably just a relative of a deceased just mourning, so I keep walking. I get closer to this figure, not particularly worried, until she looks up and starts walking towards me. I walk a little faster. Then she cries out, "Wait, I know who you are," and I freeze. "I can see your dance shoes. I know that you're her." I'm still frozen to the spot and even more creeped out than before. "You're my daughter. Anna, come closer. I've missed you. And I swear to God I thought I was dead." But my phone starts ringing and it's my mom, which snaps me out of my trance and causes me to run home faster than I'd ever run before. Big thank you to my mother for enforcing my strict curfew. Needless to say, I've never walked to that cemetery ever again. That I want you to hear. All that being said, I hope you enjoy, and remember, stay hungry. I'm a 28-year-old male, and 7 nights ago at 10:28 p.m. my life changed. I was walking home from work in downtown Vancouver, British Columbia, when I was randomly punched and kicked by someone walking past me. I had never seen this person, and I said nothing to this person, and I wasn't in their way. In fact, I made a point of moving out of his way as he was walking fairly close to me. As I walked past him, he swung his hand out, punched me in the forehead, and went in for the punch. Being a fairly big guy with defensive training, I was able to protect myself from the second punch. After working a very long and hard shift, I didn't want to get into a punch, so I tried to get up and flee. That's when I saw some people walking my way and watching what was going on. I screamed for them to call the police, and that's when he started to kick me in the back. The couple didn't call, so I reached for my phone and pushed the power button 5 times to activate SOS mode. The operator picked up, and when the assailant heard I was on the phone, he bounced. The police came, took my statement, and in the process another unit arrested the guy. I've had a pretty bad headache and I'm all bruised up, but the worst part is the mental anguish I suffer walking in public, and even more so when I have to walk home at night. The walk is down a very populated main road, but that doesn't ease the pain and stress. I watch every single person now, even check over my shoulder every couple of seconds, and practically jog home. I feel like an idiot for even feeling this way. As a male raised in a household of competitive fighters, I was told to never feel weak, but all I wanted to do when I got home that night was sit in the shower and break down. I just wanted to vent and see if anyone could give me any help with getting through this. I have always been a lanky and unmuscular man. Needless to say, when I came face to face with a big dude holding a knife in the middle of the night, I was pretty much fucked. I was walking home from my closing shift on a warm summer night last year when he stepped out of the shadows and demanded my wallet. I didn't immediately reach for it. I guess I was in shock, and he stepped closer and yelled at me to empty my pockets. When the realization set in that this guy was ready to kill me over the meager $20 I had on me, a white moth fluttered between us. To my surprise, the mugger began screaming and swinging his knife at the buck, which only caused it to fly around more sporadically. Those fierce eyes, which had been looking at me just a few seconds ago, were now shrouded in terror and now breaking their focus on the moth. I took karate lessons for a few years when I was a young boy, so I took advantage of the large man desperately flailing at the small insect and performed the #1 move recommended by all martial arts schools. I ran like hell. I ran all the way home, occasionally glancing behind myself, but never saw him following. He had other matters to attend to, I suppose. So a lesson for all wannabe criminals. Before attempting to commit a crime, go see a therapist for help getting over your dumb phobias. You'll be glad you did. It was February 2010, and I was 7 years old. My mom would let me walk home from school as my apartment was just a little ways from the school. There was never any problems with this, but one day when I was walking home from school, a black car pulled up next to me. For the life of me, I can't remember what kind of car it was. The window to the car rolled down and there was a woman with red hair. She looked to be about 45. She introduced herself as Erica and said that she was my father's sister. My father left before I was born and we don't have any contact with his side of the family. Although I didn't know much about my father at the time, I did know that he only had brothers, because just days before I was asking my mom a lot of questions about him, and one of them was if he ever had any brothers or sisters. Anyway, instead of telling Erica that he didn't have any sisters or just walking away, I told her my name, and she started asking me questions like, "Where do you go to school?" and "How's your brother?" I got really creeped out by these questions and told her that I wasn't supposed to be talking to strangers and started walking away. She continued to drive slowly next to me and kept saying that she means no harm, and I got scared and started running, and she followed me. When I got into my apartment complex, I ran at my neighbor's house acting like it was mine because that's what my brother told me to do if I was ever being followed home. I looked back when I got to the door and she was driving away. I didn't tell my mom because I didn't want her to stop letting me walk alone. The next day it happened again, but this time she offered me a ride. I told her no and to leave me alone, and once again I started running over to my neighbor's house, and once again she followed me. I still didn't tell my mom. The next day was Saturday, and when I was playing at the basketball court with my brother, I saw the car drive by and I dragged my brother inside, telling him that I felt sick. On Sunday after church, on the way home in the car pulling into the complex, I saw her outside. She was not in her car. I remember that she had a big stomach and smaller legs. I got scared, and when we got out of the car, I ran inside and looked out the living room window while my mom and brother went to go make lunch. I saw her walk over to the neighbor's house that I ran to. A few moments later, she walked away, and my neighbor came over to our house and informed my mother that a lady came looking for me, claiming that she was a teacher and needed to talk to me about something. When my mom heard this, she called me in and I started crying and told her everything that happened. And then she started crying because she was so scared of what could have happened to me. And then she told me that I had to wait for my brother, who was 13, to get out of school so we could walk home together. She also reported this to the police. Myself and my neighbor had to give a report. After all this happened, I saw the car and would point it out to my brother and we would tell my mom. It all died down by April and we never got any word about it if the police ever talked to her. I didn't see her for years and I mostly forgot about it until yesterday when I was out with my friend. I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was her. She introduced herself again and my mouth just hung open in shock. I acted nice, but when she offered to take me to my house, I got scared, grabbed my friend and walked away. I'm very afraid. She remembers me. She still tried to give me a ride and she's still around. I already told my mom and we aren't sure what to do. I have since gone to the police with my mother and we have a follow-up with an officer. I just came back to this post to inform everyone that I'm safe and that the lady has been identified, but since she technically didn't harm me, nothing is happening to her, but that there has been a restraining order placed against her. I want to say thank you to everyone for your kind words, which helped me feel better about the situation, and I'm glad that this situation is over. Always be cautious of your surroundings. You really don't know what could happen. I'm going to give a bit of backstory first. It's almost the end of summer and I've been trying to cram as much activities in as possible. I'm an 18-year-old male and I don't have my license, so I have to take the bus and walk everywhere. I don't really mind though. I like walking. So my friend and I wanted to have a night out, so at about 5 p.m. she picked me up and we got pizza and teriyaki before heading back to her house. We decided to get high with her boyfriend. At about 2 in the morning, I decided I should head home. I didn't bother asking my friends because they were already asleep and I always felt bad for asking for rides. So I gathered my things and started the 5-mile walk out of town into my home. I'm not really a paranoid person, but I always carry some form of weapon with me just in case. Tonight it was my pocket knife, but during the school year I have at least 3 mini screwdrivers on me at all times. I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 5'11" and I'm confident enough in my ability to take care of myself. So I started this walk high out of my mind at around 2 in the morning. I'm at mile 3 heading towards some apartments when I noticed offhand that there is a man about 100 feet behind me. As soon as I see him, he pulls out his phone and begins talking on it. I brush it off and continue on my way home. A little ways ahead, another man comes out of the apartments and just stands in the middle of the sidewalk up ahead, effectively blocking my path. At this point, I realize that something is most definitely wrong, so I stop walking and just look at him. He was tall, maybe 6'1", and his grin was really unsettling. I hear the man from earlier before I feel him grab my left arm and tug me sharply backward. My first reaction is to reach in my front pocket and grab my pocket knife. His friend has already started walking towards us, but he hasn't noticed that I'm reaching for anything, so it was a complete surprise to see me pull out a knife and stab his friend's thigh. He yells and lets go of my arm, and I quickly sprint away from the two of them into the bushes alongside the apartments. I stayed there for a bit. My phone had died while I was at my friend's, otherwise I would have called for help. There was a bit of cussing and then they went searching for me, but eventually they gave up. After what felt like ages, I found myself on the main road again, blissfully alone. The rest of my walk was okay. I never ran into anyone after that, and when I told my mom about it this morning, she glared at me and told me to stop walking alone at night. And that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So every Saturday, me and a couple of friends get together to watch UFC. We live in England, so this usually means staying up until the early hours of the morning, followed by a painfully tiring walk home after it's finished. I live on the opposite side of town of my friends, so whenever we watch it at one of our houses, I have to walk a good 6 or 7 miles to get home. Unfortunately, I can't afford a car at the moment. This was never a problem though, because I don't mind walking as long as I've got a bit of music to keep me company, and I was still a naive 17-year-old who thought everyone in my area was friendly and harmless. Needless to say, I was proven wrong. So it was September of last year and we were watching UFC, but I remember it was John Jones vs. Rampage because I lost a substantial amount of money on a bet when Rampage got completely dominated. The event went on until around 3 a.m., at which point we all parted ways and set off home. I had made this walk countless times and considered my chosen route perfectly safe, although looking back now it was probably the worst route I could have taken. I basically followed the main road for a mile. This led to some back alleys which led to a 5-mile home straight consisting of a high road to my right and a forest/park to my left. During the daytime, the park was really inviting as it was just swings, slides, and climbing frames completely surrounded by a wall of trees. It was like something straight out of Center Parcs. Not sure if you have those in America. However, at nighttime, the lack of lighting made it a stereotypical, almost Scooby-Doo-like creepy place. Anyway, I had made it straight home without any interruption and everything was going as normal. I remember I was listening to Hit the Road Jack by Ray Charles at the time. Not that it's important to what happened, it's just a really vivid memory. I was about 2 miles down this road and just coming up to the dreaded playground when I felt a car coming up behind me with the tie beams on. It wasn't uncommon for cars to pass me on my walks home. Many cabs frequently passed me, but it was unusual for their lights to be that bright. I thought nothing of it at first, but the lights stayed on me for way longer than they should have. All I was thinking was how this car has not overtaken me yet. I took out one of my headphones and I heard the engine running really slowly, like when you pull a car out of a drive. It was at this point that I realized the car was literally right behind me. The driver must have seen me notice him because he sped up, so he was now going at the exact same speed as me. Being naive, I thought he was probably just wanting directions or something, so I stopped to see what he wanted. As I stopped, so did he. I took out my other headphone and said something along the lines of, "Hey man, what's up?" He didn't say anything, he just stared at me. He looked like he was in his mid-40s and not of English descent. My guess is he was Polish due to his grayish-white hair, big build, and scruffy appearance. No offense to any Polish people, by the way. That's just how the Polish people where I live generally look. His blank stare kinda freaked me out, so I just stuck my headphones back in and started walking fast down the road. This was far from the end, however. as he once again went at my speed, staring at me the whole time, not once looking at the road. As soon as he caught my eye, he started gesturing me with the come hither motion, which, accompanied with his now grinning face, really freaked me the fuck out. I was genuinely panicking at this point and started weighing out my limited options. I could try and run home, but this would mean running in a straight line for 4 miles, which probably couldn't do for a good start, as he would have been able to drive right alongside me the whole way. So that option was a no. I could attempt the freak-out method and try and act crazy to scare him off, but I had already shown him signs of fear, so doing this would probably result in a physical confrontation. I can take care of myself just fine in a fair fight, but this guy could have a knife or a gun, so that option was a definite no. In the end, I had to go for my third and final option of dart into the forest and hide until he drives off. As much as I didn't want to do it, I jumped over the small ditch between the path and the forest and proceeded to hide in a big jumble of bushes like 20 meters in. At this point, my heart was in my throat and I just sat there staring at the road, waiting for the lights from the car's headlights to disappear. I must have sat there for what felt like an eternity, but was in fact only a couple of minutes. But the lights didn't go away. All I could think was just please just drive away. After several more minutes of the lights just staying there, I realized I had to plan another way of getting home, or at least away, and I figured the only way was to make the rest of the way through the forest. But I couldn't move. I was genuinely paralyzed with fear. It took me a minute to compose myself, and then I gradually started shuffling forward. I didn't care how long it took, I just had to get home. I edged forward gradually and eventually reached the clearing where the park was. I didn't want to be out in the open, so I was trying to think of the best way to get around the park. It was then that I noticed a black silhouette sitting on the swing with its back to me. It could only be him. He must have gotten out of his car to look for me and was just waiting on a swing. Tears were streaming down my face because I was sure that's what it was. Once again, I found myself paralyzed with fear. He hadn't seen me and I don't think that he heard me, but I felt sick. He just sat there rocking backwards and forwards. I took a deep breath and then sprinted as fast as I could back the way I had came, back through the forest, and came out of the edge of the road where the hung straight had started. I say sprinted, but it felt like one of those dreams where your legs don't work properly and they just shake and wobble uncontrollably. From there, I ran all the way back to my friend's house. I don't remember much about that journey at all. It felt like one second I was in the forest and then the next I was banging on his door, still shaking uncontrollably. He let me in and his parents called the police, who came around an hour or so later. I had to go to the police station to make a report and give a description of the guy, but they never took it any further because my description didn't match anyone of known danger in the area. When my parents found out, they insisted that it be taken further, but the police didn't seem to think anything illegal actually happened. Which is fair enough, I guess, but there's no way of knowing what his intentions were, and as far as I'm concerned, I was near death that night. I think it goes without saying that I never walked home alone at that time of night ever again, and I'm now a hell of a lot more paranoid when it comes to strangers.